We have a question about the saguna and the nirguna in regard to bhakti. Now, the misconception here is that when we speak about guna, about nirguna, we have to include the spiritual qualities, while in fact the gunas that we have to abandon are just the material qualities. Like Krishna in Gita is telling Arjuna, Nishtragunyo bhava Arjuna. Arjuna, abandon all the three gunas. Means, rise above the material qualities or sattva, rajas, tamas. Of course, we need to rise above tamas. We need to rise above rajas, and we need to rise even above sattva. This is how the bhakti can become unconditioned. On the level of Shuddha Sattva, means pure Sattva that is transcendental Sattva. This is the entire point, because Adi Shankara, when he spoke of nirguna, nirakara, Brahman, he did not mean that the non-manifested impersonal form of Brahman is better than the personal form of Brahman. In fact, we find in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will clearly say, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, I am the basis, the foundation of Brahman. And because Adi Shankar really appreciated Bhagavad Gita, it means we have to find a better explanation. Now, the first line of Adi Shankar's commentary on Bhagavad Gita says, Narayana para avyaktat. Narayana para avyakta. Means Narayana is supreme and is not manifested. But what does it mean, non-manifested? It doesn't mean impersonal. Non-manifested, when you are speaking about Narayana, you are speaking about a name and a form, which is a personality, which is personal. Now, non-manifested means that it is not manifested on the material level. And the material level, Vishnu remains non-visible, non-manifested. But then, God manifests through a number of manifestations, in fact. And for example, we have in Prashnotara Ratnamalika, where Adi Shankar is explaining things very easily, in a very simple manner, and Adi Shankar is asking, who is God? And he's answering, God is Vishnu and Shiva together. Shiva is manifested and Vishnu is non-manifested. Narayana is non-manifested and Shiva becomes, from the Sadashiva, he becomes Shiva in this universe, in this world, in this level of visible existence, and he manifests as the Father of all beings. Now, that is manifest. And manifestation is characterized by duality. Now, it's not easy to understand how bhakti should, is supposed to be beyond the duality. Because, of course, you have the bhakta and the bhokta. Bhakti means a relationship between the devotee and God. So it appears to be requiring some degree of duality. So this is the basis of all the theological elaboration of the various forms of Siddhanta by the main acharyas. Like we have Adi Shankar, Nimbarka, Vishnu Swami, Ramanuja, Madhva. They are all presenting their own perspective on this very difficult point of simultaneous duality and non-duality. That is the characteristic of bhakti. Bhagavad Gita is explaining this very nicely, very clearly, but we have to actually apply the concept in practice. Now, the presentation by the followers of Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, is called Achintya Veda Abheda Tattva. The Tattva, reality, which is God. Like in Bhagavata Purana is saying, this Tattva is knowledge, and it is described as Brahman Pravatma Bhagavan. Vadanti Tat Tattva Vidas. I have to find again the verse, but the point is, this Tattva, is Achintya Bheda Bheda, in the sense that it is beyond the intellect. So it is at the same time duality and non-duality. Because in Krishna, Bhagavad Gita is, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that the devotee enters into Krishna. Vishate tadanantaram. What does that mean? If we have a material concept of God, we cannot enter God like, if we think that God is a material person with material limitations, we cannot enter God. Now, the problem is that many people have a very limited and material idea about God. Are you following until now? Any question? Any doubt?
Nothing from my end.
Okay. Okay, so I got. Now, the concept of nirguna refers to the material gunas. So this is why Adi Shankar is saying that Narayana is supreme and is not manifested. It's not manifested in the material world through the material guna. So Narayana does not have a material body. The body of Narayana, the form of Narayana, the name of Narayana are transcendental. Now, the nirguna Brahman and the saguna Brahman are exactly to be understood in this light. Like the savikalpa and the nirvikalpa samadhi must be understood in this light. When Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, for someone who has a body, it's very difficult to contemplate the non-manifested. So this is why there are avatars. the avatars are forms that are manifested to the eyes of everyone. Now, the avatars, one of the manifestations of God, one of the avatar of God is the Archa Vigraha, is the deity form, is the representation, the symbolic representation, the image. That is also an avatar. The other avatar is the name. Now, the Vigraha, the Archa Vigraha, the worship, the form that is worshipped in ritual ceremonies or meditated on, and the name of God are avatars, the only avatars that appear in Kali Yuga. That is the tradition in the Bhakti Shastra. Kali Yuga Nama Rupa, Krishna Avatar. This is, I think this is Krishnadasa Kaviraj writing. But anyway, so the point is that in Kali Yuga, Vishnu appears as avatar only in the form of the Archa Vigraha, of the name, and if he comes in a human form, he comes only as a devotee, as a teacher, as a preacher. He doesn't come and say, I'm God. This is important. We have already examined this point in our meeting when we were discussing who is Krishna Chaitanya. So the idea of the nirguna and saguna, when we are speaking about bhakti, it is necessarily about overcoming the material gunas and appreciating the spiritual gunas, because it is said that God has unlimited forms, names, qualities, activities, and everything. So God is not without qualities, but the qualities of God are transcendental. Now, we can connect this concept with the idea of illusion or Maya. Now, we know that Maya is Shakti, the power. And the Adi Shakti manifests in two different modes. It's the same person, it's just one only, but it manifests in two different modalities. One is a Mahamaya and the other is Yogamaya. Mahamaya is confusing and covering the consciousness and confuses the individual being into thinking that he is the body and is a limited person, limited to the body, to the role in society, in family, in this and that. So it is a limitation. And it is the great Maya of the Pradhan, of the material universe. Okay, so the Yoga Maya is the illusion that takes us closer to God. And it is the Maya of the devotee who relates to God according to a particular loving relationship, which could be the five major rasas are Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. We discussed about that before. Now, these five major rasas, let's say four, because Shanta rasa is not very interesting. But in each of these relationships, we see God as a limited being. Like, for example, Vasalya Ras, Mother Yashoda sees Krishna that who needs feeding. Krishna is hungry. He wants his milk. But God is not hungry. God is not limited. He doesn't have that kind of problems. So why Yashoda sees baby Krishna as being hungry? That is because of Yoga Maya. And this gives us the opportunity to relating to God in a loving relationship, in a bhakti relationship. Now, of course, if we go to the genuine bhakti, we have the inferior bhakti and superior bhakti. Now, in the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is mentioning what is the param bhakti. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na sochati na kankshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. It means that we can attain the higher bhakti when we have overcome the material identifications and limitations. So we actually stop thinking that God is limited. We still see and feel God as our baby, like in Vatsalya Ras. Let's make the example of Vatsalya Ras. We still feel that God is our baby, and we have this very strong sense of protection and service and devotion and love, but we know that he's not a normal baby. So this can be done. Yeah, please.
Here I just want to interrupt, like, as we have heard, like in comparison to Mother Devaki and Mother Yashoda, like Mother Devaki has the realization that Krishna is God, still he has the motherly feeling. And
Exactly, yes.
Mother Yashoda, covered by Yoga Maya, she is like ignored, and she is not aware that Krishna is God. She has only the like the feelings to have. So, but
Well,
it is
it's
seen that Mother
yeah.
Yashoda has been glorified much more than
Okay. Now, this is not
even in the case of like gopis and queens of Dwarka.
yeah.
Like gopis are much more glorified than queens of Dwarka. The similar case. So, how to understand this?
Yes, perfect. Very, very good question. Very good question. Now, the point is that it's not exactly correct that the Mother Yashoda is more devotional than the rest. But the devotion, the Vatsalya rasa of Mother Yashoda is more direct. Also, Mother Yashoda knows that Krishna is not a normal baby, because she sees the universal form in his mouth. The gopis also remember that Krishna is not a normal boy. In fact, when they're singing, you go and read the Bhagavata Purana, 10th canto, when the gopis are reenacting, they know that Krishna is Vishnu. So they reenact the various avatars of Vishnu. They know that Krishna is Vishnu. They know that Krishna is the Paramatma. They know everything. They don't care. Because the idea that Krishna is God is disturbing their dedication. This is the greatness of the people in Vrindavan. Now, it's not ignorance, it's transcendence, it's going beyond sattva. Now, Devaki and the queens of Dwarka, they also are not completely aware of the fact that, they don't treat Krishna as God. Because Devaki, still treated Krishna as a son. And the queens of Dwarka, the wives of Krishna in Dwarka, still treated Krishna as a husband. It's not that they were staying, at a distance and they were afraid of approaching Krishna. But because they were in the Aishwarya feeling, so they were more attached to the Aishwarya feelings. But in Vrindavan, there is this, all the rasas take a Madhurya feeling. Even the Dasya ras in Vrindavan, it takes a very intimate flavor, because Krishna behaves like a very ordinary boy. Krishna doesn't go around with all the jewels and everything. This is something we get from the temple worship, that we put lots of jewels. But Krishna was not going around like that. Krishna was decorating in Vrindavan. He was decorating himself with the forest things, like peacock feathers and leaves and flowers and stuff like that. In Dwarka, Mathura and Dwarka, because Krishna was playing the part of the royal family in the Yadu dynasty, Krishna's mood was different. So the devotees in Mathura and Dwarka were serving Krishna according to his desires. So it was Krishna who wanted to have a more majestic sentiment. In Vrindavan, Krishna wants to have a simpler, more homely feeling. And this is what the devotees are most attracted. So a devotee who is more attracted to the majestic feeling will serve Krishna in that feeling, Mathura and Dwarka. So they will be in the parivar, in the bhakti circle of, for example, Mother Devaki. Devaki was is an extremely intimate devotee of Krishna, because she's a mother. That's a very intimate relationship. Still, she's of the royal family, and Krishna is playing the role of a prince. In Vrindavana, Krishna wants to play the Gopa, and so Mother Yashoda is the mother of the Gopa. But it's not that, one thing I remember, that there is a saying that in the spiritual world, everything is in the positive. There is nothing that is less. Everything is more. Nothing is less. Of course, it's difficult to understand, because when we speak of duality, we speak of something more, there must be something less. But this doesn't apply to actual bhakti. Now, as we were saying before, there is like an inferior bhakti that is still not completely developed. So it still has some material identifications. So most people have not attained the Brahmabhuta, the level of Brahman realization. So their devotion, their bhakti, is a simple devotion. That is the reason why Krishna is saying in Gita that to those who worship me, serve me with love and devotion, I give the intelligence by which they will come to me. So, if you think about it, if they are already serving God with love and devotion, they have already come to Krishna, right? So why Krishna is saying that he will help them to actually approach him? Because the devotion, the love and devotion and the service they're offering before the Brahman realization, the transcendental realization, before liberation, is still material devotion. So, I think this is the only difference. If we say that in Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda and the gopis didn't know that Krishna was God, we are actually turning the problem upside down. We are saying that Mother Yashoda and the gopis were more ignorant, were less realized. They had less understanding, less knowledge than the Devaki and the devotees in Mathura and Dwarka, which is not the case. You understand what I'm talking about?
Yes, like still it's hard to understand all these points.
Of course, it's hard to understand because we have a material
I
body.
was thinking like says for Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, like Stragunya Bhagavad Arjuna, like seeing us to three qualities. And if we are transcending three qualities, then we will be Brahmavita. And if we will be Brahmavita, there will be no duality. And if there will be no duality, then how can we stop?
Okay,
Devotion means to stop. So if there will be no duality, then how can we stop?
okay. Now, the connection is not so good, but I think, sorry, I think I got the point. Now, in the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita and in Mahabharata, we see that Arjuna is especially when Krishna shows the universal form and Arjuna says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I treated you like a friend, like a relative, and I didn't show you proper respect." This is not. We should not uh, read this passage as an increase in consciousness. We should read it as a different type of consciousness. Just like when Krishna was born, Vasudeva and Devaki saw Krishna in the form of Narayan, and then again they saw him as a baby. So Vasudeva thought, we have to save him. So, in a sense, there was that same Yogamaya telling Vasudeva and Devaki that Krishna was just a baby, and in the same way, when Arjuna is telling Krishna, I was too familiar with you, it's a moment in which Arjuna is reminding us that Krishna is not an ordinary person. But still, Arjuna is also not an ordinary person. Arjuna is a manifestation of Shiva. In Puri, we have the 5 major temples of Shiva that are called the Panchapandavas. Now, Arjuna is the manifestation of Vishnu, Shiva, that is called Indra. So, Arjuna is not an ordinary person. He's not ignorant. He's not confused. He's just giving us the opportunity through the Leela to understand the concept of bhakti. So, in the same way, we have all the adventures of all the avatars. Mahabharata, Ramayana, Puranas, and everything. So we see that sometimes the actors in this variety of leelas appear to to express some material ignorance or confusion, but that is just for the purpose of demonstrating something or teaching something, and for the purpose of attracting people to the story. It's never something adharmic. It's always something that can be safely imitated, followed by regular people. So it's the avatars are manifesting human-like emotions, activities, and everything, for the purpose of giving us a demonstration, teaching something. So is that clearer now? Any more questions? I know.
Like theoretically, it is much more clearer. Yeah, like
Okay.
theoretically, it is much more clearer now. But for us to understand the concept of avatar and the concept of Narayan taking form materially in the material world is
Of course it's
difficult
difficult.
to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course
Because
it's
let's
very
say
difficult.
yeah. Because let's say
Anyway,
you can understand qualities is filtered into like
yeah, it's difficult because we can only measure things according to our experience. So until we actually have the experience of the realization of Brahman, we cannot understand Brahman. It's like the story of the frog in the well. The other frog went to the sea and is trying to tell his friends in the well how big is the sea. Unless we actually have the direct experience of the ocean, we cannot tell people who just have the experience of a hole in the ground. So anyway, I think this is a good point, and we can develop it further. Sudip, anything else we want to elaborate on this?
So one question here.
Binay, your connection is very bad. Your connection is very bad. Sudip, what is the question?
Yeah, what? Vinayji, your voice is barely audible. I think there is some network issue since you're traveling.
Yeah. You should with your question.
Okay. Maybe Vinayji, you can type your question. Meanwhile, I'll ask mine. So,
yeah, that would be nice.
Just one thing. So to reach to that level of Brahman realization, is it we have to contemplate on that idea of Brahman, or we just go through with our sadhana of chanting and reading?
We go through our we go through our sadhana of chanting and reading, but we have to read and understand. Because if we just read like recitation like the Gita part, which, it's a mechanical recitation of which we don't need to understand the meaning, we are not going very far.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah,
in
reading by
Bhagavad
mean
Gita,
I
yeah.
by reading I only meant reading and understanding. Or I think in the path of jnana there is the I think this nididhyasana and dhyan where they contemplate also on that reality which is
No,
difficult to contemplate on.
it's
So
the
in path
same.
of
Yeah.
bhakti we should do that or only our chanting would help us.
No, no, no. Of course, in bhakti we have to do that. In bhakti we also need to study. Jnana and vairagya are necessary in the beginning of the process of bhakti. We can give up jnana and vairagya only when we are not conditioned anymore. When we actually have attained the Brahman realization. Complete realization, there is no difference. Okay. Is this so that after complete realization there will be no difference between saguna and nirguna? Yes. After Brahman realization, we understand that the gunas of God are not material gunas. Now, in the second chapter of Gita, Krishna starts his teachings to Arjuna by talking about the Atman. If we understand what we actually are, that is Brahman realization. It's the beginning, it's the first step. If we understand what is Atman, what is Brahman, then we can actually understand that the saguna of God is not material gunas, it's spiritual gunas, transcendental gunas. So is that clearer?
I think Binayji got dropped off due to network issues.
Yeah, completely. Anyway, we are doing our best. I'm not particularly attached to the technical quality of our meetings. I just go on. We do what we can do. If we can transmit, some good information, some good understanding that will help us deal better with our own personal evolution and with the evolution of society, then we are happy, even if the quality of the entertainment is not particularly, sophisticated. So it's not a big problem. Okay, so I think we can stop here for today.
So my question is still I am not clear on that part. In
Uh,
path of bhakti, this
okay,
contemplation of Brahman, which is in Jnana Yoga we call nididhyasana, right?
okay.
So is that also required or only chanting and reading and understanding scripture and doing deity worship, is that sufficient or we have to contemplate on this reality which is uncontemplatable?
But Sudeep, we read the scriptures, and the scriptures are talking constantly about contemplating the
Mhm.
transcendent.
Mhm.
So there is no contradiction.
Okay.
The two things are one and the same.
Mhm.
Because when you study, what do you study? If you don't study that we are Brahman, what are you studying?
Okay.
If you don't study, that's why I was saying, Bhagavad Gita starts, by saying that we are Atman, and Atman is Brahman.
Mhm.
The description that Krishna is giving of Atman is the same as the description of Brahman. The only difference between Atman and Brahman is that the Atman is individual and the Brahman is collective. So that is only a difference in quantity, but not in quality. So once we realize the Atman, we have realized the Brahman. It's the same realization. And that is the first step in the study. Bhagavad Gita is the first of the Prashnatraya. Already.
So this contemplation which we are talking about would be initially theoretical and based on your understanding and limitation of your knowledge. Slowly it will progress and you will understand actually.
Gradually,
right?
Yeah, gradually, because how fast or slow it will be, it depends on, for example, what we learned in previous lifetimes. It doesn't have to be slow. It depends on how ready and capable we are of dropping the ahankara and mamata, the material identification and attachments. Because we don't have to build up the self-realization. The self is already there. The total consciousness is already there. We don't need to build it up. We just have to drop the conditionings, the layers of material identification and attachment. Just drop the luggage. We are already perfect. We are already Brahman. We are already Atman and Brahman. We are already consciousness. We are already unlimited. The point is, we cannot feel it because we have a very thick layer that is covering our real nature. This is why the prakash, the enlightenment, the moksha can be attained in one moment. Because it's just that moment when the shell breaks, like a coconut. Maybe it will take time to break the coconut shell, but it's not something that you have to build. You have to weaken your identification, material identification and attachments, and as you weaken them, you become better able to crack them open and drop them. And this is naturally happening through the dynamics, the system of reincarnation. Because when you take birth so many times in so many different types of bodies and situations and identifications and attachments, and you have to give them up every time you die, you have to give them up, willing or not. And again, you take more and new ones, and again, you have to give them up, and again, you take new ones. After a sufficient number of incarnations, you understand that all these identifications and attachments are meaningless. It's not you. Let's say, for example, that you have always had one dress only. You're always, of course, you're identified with that dress. But if you go through many changes of dress, many changes of vehicles, I have many different cars, one car after the other. At some point, you think, well, maybe I don't need a car. I'm not the car. I can go around and do things even without a car. You understand how it works? It's weakening of the material identification and attachment. But realizing that you are not the body is something that can come in a flash. Okay, you were saying something.
No, nothing.
Okay, so I think maybe for today we can stop here.
Okay,
And
it's too much of something which,
yeah,
since
we
we are
need to,
not on that level,
yeah,
it's difficult to comprehend. But
yeah,
yeah,
we
we'll
need to
slowly
digest.
try.
We need to digest. Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit at a time. That's why I'm saying let's stop here.
Mm-hmm.
Because we need to, whatever we could eat today, we have to give ourselves time to digest.
Mm-hmm.
And then for next time you prepare your questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try to listen this one again. Anyways, I've recorded,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, exactly.